We'll move on to the next chapter. Chapter 65 is regarding, he says, ذِكْرُ الْمَوْتِ وَقِصَرِ الْعَمَلِ, being mindful of death. And a person should not have hopes of living forever and delusions or thoughts that he's going to live forever, and being mindful that life is short and death is around the corner, and prepare for it before it comes. Wallahu alam. Chapter 66, he says, باب استحباب زيارة القبور للرجال وما يقوله الزائر. The recommendation for men to visit the graves. And what should the visitant say when he visits the graves? The recommendation, not the obligation, that is recommended, preferred, excellent, virtuous for men to visit the graves. And when men go to the graves, what is the supplication or supplications that they should make? I.e., the author does not believe that women should visit the graves. That's why he clearly stipulated men and not women. So the author believes women should avoid visiting the graves, and it is exclusive to one gender. What do other scholars say? Why do they say that? That's a discussion in itself. What's important is that one view from among the people of knowledge is that women should not visit the graves, and that they are prohibited from doing so, and that can possibly be a sin, let alone a major sin, for a woman to visit the graves. And there are other scholars who hold the exact opposite view, who say that a woman is allowed to visit the graves, whether she's commanded to visit the graves just like men are, for the purpose of reflection, for the purpose of preparing for death, let alone other purposes and reasons why a Muslim is to visit the grave. What's important is that the author states is that this is for men. That is his view, and that is his stance and his position. Khair, inshallah. The first hadith, the author, he states, عن بريدة رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم كنت نهيتكم عن زيارة القبور فزوروها رواه مسلم وفي رواية فمن أراد أن يزور القبور فليزر فإنها تذكرنا الآخرة. The first hadith is reported by Buraidah radiallahu anhu. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, there was a time in which I had forbidden you from visiting the graves, but that time is now over. And that hadith is collected by Imam Muslim. And another version states, so whoever wants to visit the graves, he is allowed to do so, because the graves remind us of the afterlife. The graves, visiting the graveyard, it reminds us of the inevitable journey for each and every one of us. So this is an authentic hadith, and obviously it proves what the author said, that is recommended. And this same hadith is used by the other scholars who say is that visiting the graves is for both sexes. The Messenger of Allah ﷺ in this hadith did not specify which gender or sex can visit the graves. And the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned a major reason and benefit behind visiting the graves, and that is being reminded of the afterlife. So they say, if a man needs to be reminded of an afterlife, then a woman needs to be reminded of the afterlife even more. And if a woman is going to visit the graves, then she visits the graves with the proper etiquette, with the proper manners, dressed properly, controlling herself, keeping herself in composure, and not wailing and shrieking, falling down, bumping into men, holding on men, crying out, screaming out loud. Now, obviously, they're going to say, those scholars, is that there are men who may go to the graves and do things that are incorrect. Some type of innovations, or some type of shirk, waliyadhu billah, calling on this ancestor, this wali. They may go to the graves shrieking and wailing. They may go to the graves without any patience. All right? So therefore, why is it specific just to women, the prohibition? Those other scholars, they say, if that's true, then in most cases, a woman she's more likely to misbehave more than a man, because of the gender in general. And that the masculine gender, the male gender, is generally stronger, has greater control over himself, is more rational than emotional, etc. And then a woman, by nature, as a gender, they say, is more emotional, so on and so forth. So it's an argument among the people of knowledge with regards to can both sexes visit the graves or not. What's important is the first hadith proves is that someone should visit the graves, man or woman, and the reason why is that it reminds us of death and of the afterlife. Wallahu ta'ala alam. وعن عائشة رضي الله عنها قالت كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم كلما كان ليلتها من رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يخرج من آخر الليل إلى البقيع فيقول السلام عليكم دار قوم مؤمنين وأتاكم ما توعدون غدا مؤجلون وإنا إن شاء الله بكم لاحقون اللهم اغفر لأهل بقيع الغرقد أو لأهل بقيع الغرقد رواه Muslim. Aisha radiallahu anha narrated that whenever the Messenger of Allah ﷺ came to spend the night with me, whenever it was her night, every night, at the end of the night, he would go to the graveyards and he would say, Assalamu alaikum, Dara Qawmin Mu'mineen, peace be upon you, abode of the faithful. Atakum ma tu'aduna, what you were promised has come to you. Ghadan mu'ajjaluna, and tomorrow we'll get what we're promised. Everyone will be resurrected, everyone will die. Okay, even though we have some more respite, we have some more time now, but it's going to come eventually, for lack of a better translation. وَإِنَّا إِنْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ بِكُمْ لَاحِقُونَ, and inshallah we will join you. O Allah, please forgive the people of the Gharqad graveyard, the Baqi' al-Gharqad. And this hadith is collected by Imam Muslim. And the highlighting point from the hadith shows us what is the sunnah to say when you go to the graveyards. You can make this supplication. Assalamu alaikum, etc., etc., etc. It is a recommended thing to say. As far as some of the issues pertaining to this hadith, then first and foremost is when the Prophet ﷺ says, وَإِنَّا إِنْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ بِكُمْ لَاحِقُونَ. He says, and by Allah's permission, we will join you. The Messenger of Allah ﷺ didn't have doubt about death, but there are different reasons why he said it like this. Some scholars say he said this because he didn't know where he would be buried. And some scholars, they say that he said this tabarrukan, seeking Allah's blessings and professing humility. Inshallah, this is the truth. Inshallah, we would do this, even though it was clear and it was confident that they would do a thing. All right, but he didn't have doubt that he would die and be buried. This hadith, it also goes to show is that one of the main benefits of visiting the graves is not just to be reminded of the hereafter, but it is to make dua for the deceased. So when you go to the graves, you're benefiting yourselves and you're benefiting the dead. So it's a win-win situation. And not to call upon the dead and invoke the dead and supplicate to the dead. Allahul Musta'an. Khairan inshallah ta'ala. This hadith, it also goes to show that the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam, he divided his time and his nights among his wives. And no one of his wives got all of their nights, all of the nights. Rather, this one had time and that one had time. خير إن شاء الله تعالى. The next hadith, وعن بريدة رضي الله عنه قال كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يعلمهم إذا خرجوا إلى المقابر أن يقول قائلهم وأن يقول قائلهم السلام عليكم أهل الديار من المؤمنين والمسلمين وإنا إن شاء الله بكم لاحقون وإنا إن شاء الله بكم للاحقون أسأل الله لنا ولكم العافية رواه Muslim. Also narrated Buraydah رضي الله عنه, the Prophet ﷺ would teach them, the Sahaba, whenever they wanted to go visit the graves, to say, Assalamu alaikum ahla diyari min al-mu'minina wal-muslimin wa inna insha'allahu bikum lalahiquna as'alullaha lana wa lakum al-afiyah. That supplication, which is very similar to the previous hadith, and this hadith is collected by Muslim as well, and the hadith proves that the Prophet ﷺ himself was a worshipper and he was a supplicant, and that he invoked Allah. Not like people today saying, call on the Prophet. Ask the Prophet to make dua for you, even though the Prophet has left this world. Make istighatha with the Rasul. And then he'll take your dua to Allah. When the Messenger of Allah was alive, he invoked and supplicated to Allah, the Sublime and the Exalted. So this proves the tawheed of Allah. Moving forward, the author, he says, وَعَنِ ibn Abbas رضي الله عنهما قال مر رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم بقبور بالمدينة فأقبل عليهم بوجهه فقال السلام عليكم يا أهل القبور يغفر الله لنا ولكم أنتم سلفنا ونحن بالأثر. رواه الترمذي وقال حديث حسن. And there's also a hadith of Abdullah ibn Abbas, which is of a similar supplication as well. What's important is that's the end of the chapter. And when you visit the graves, as we said, there are rulings, things that you do, things that you do not do. And women visiting the graves, women following the funeral procession, all of those are technical issues, technical discussions. What's important is, right now we're men, let us take the lesson, visit the grave, be thoughtful of death, reflect upon death, which we all will go one day, soon enough, some sooner than others. Allahumma musta'an. Sallallahu sallam wa barak ala abdi wa rasulih nabina wa imamina Muhammad.